And with that, I welcome you to study with Rabbi Dalia Marx.
Shalom, friends from Jerusalem. How is it really different? How this night is really different? I'm going to do a really blitz, very, very quick survey, and I want to invite you to be with me. I hope you have the handout that we sent you, and if not, you can find it on my website. Maybe someone can give the link once again. So how is it different? How this night is really different? Well, we know that Pesach is different from any other Chagim. It has nothing to do with COVID, because the center of the Chag is at home. When we have a home Seder, we do it at home. It's not like high holidays, for example, where you have a clergy, you have a rabbi, you have cantor, you have people who lead it for you. When you lead Seder at home, you are the rabbi, you are the cantor, and I'm talking about people who may feel that they are not empowered enough to do that. And today, what I would like us to think about is that this Pesach is filled with a lot of constraints and limitations, but also with very new opportunities. So what I would like to do with you very quick, it's completely unkosher to go over all this so quickly, but I want to talk with you about the evolution of the Passover celebration, its relevance to our pandemic times, and what we can do with that. I think number 3 will be more what comes after my presentation, but I want to take you to a journey to see how Pesach was evolved. And I can tell you the bottom line already at the beginning. The bottom line is that times of constraints, of disasters, of difficulties were very typically times of great creativity. And the entire Passover celebration was created from catastrophe to catastrophe. And that's how it was evolved throughout time. So, the development of the Passover celebration. I want to talk about 9 chapters in that sense. The first temple period, the second temple period, the Tanaitic period, the sages of the Mishnah and the Tosefta, the Amoraic period, the sages of the Talmud, the Gaonic period, the Middle Ages part 1, that is to say the time of the manuscripts, and then when the printing press was invented and how it evolved, how it changed our Passover celebration, and then modernity and post-modernity, and chapter number 9 is pandemic times. That's last year and this year, and God willing, never again. But I think what we're doing this year, what we did last year, will shape and reshape the way we think about ourselves, about our families, about our congregations, about how we celebrate our Chagim. So, the first temple period, we don't know much, basically speaking. We know about the Paschal sacrificial lamb, Pesach, the Korban, the offering of the Passover. And the same with the second temple. We have the Paschal sacrificial lamb. But the interesting thing about the second temple period, at least the later part of the second temple period, is that we have some testimonies by Josephus, by Philo, in the Christian Bible, about prayers and hymns and recitations around the Paschal offering. So it wasn't anymore a silent observance, but it was accompanied by liturgy or by paraliturgical statements. So this is what we have in the second temple period. After the destruction of the second temple in the year 70 Common Era, there was a great crisis, and the great crisis came because we cannot really celebrate Pesach how it's supposed to be celebrated. The center of the attention is everyone bringing the lamb to the temple, slaughtering it and eating it. Sorry, I'm vegetarian and I'm a Reform rabbi, but what can we do? That was the center of attention. What do we do after when we can't do that anymore? The inability to celebrate the Pesach as we used to led us to the creation of a Seder. You see, it's not the Seder as we know it, it's a Seder, And we see it in the Mishnah in Tractate Psachim, the last chapter of Tractate Psachim. I'm sure many of you know it, and we learned it also in school, and also the Tosefta. So we have the appearance of the Seder, and what do we find in the Seder that still works for us today? We have the 4 cups. We have Ma Nishtana, how this night is different. The question or the questions, depends how you want to look at it. You have Arami Oved Avi. You have the Hallel, the 6 psalms that are recited on the Seder night, divided from each other, but 6 psalms. And then we have special symbolic food items that symbolizes different things. So that's what we have in the Tanaitic times. Another thing that you find not in the Mishnah or the Tosefta, but in the Mechilta, in the Midrash for Shmot, you have the story of the 4 children, Midrash Arbaat Abanim. That's what we have in the 3rd chapter here, the Tanaitic period. The 4th period, the times of the Talmudim, brought to us the Magid. Basically, the retelling of the story of Pesach. Magid comes from Lehagid, right? And that's the mitzvah of Pesach. Vehigadet lebincha, tell it unto your, well, we would like to translate to your child. The Hebrew says, tell it to your son, but you know. So we have the retelling of the story from of the salvation from Egypt. It is documented in the Babylonian Talmud as one night, one particular Seder that took place, but it entered the Haggadah as we have it today before of us. We have the Hayinu Avadim leParo b'Mitzrayim, and that's what we have in the Tanaitic, in the Amoraic period. Chapter number 5 takes us to the Geonic period. If you remember, this is also the period where we find the first Sidurim, and here we have the first compilation of the Passover Haggadah, which arguably is the most widespread Jewish book, even more than the Siddur. So we have the first compilation of a Passover Haggadah. We have an addition of a very strange text, Halach Ma'anya. This is the bread of affliction. Yes. Why is it so strange? Because it's not in Hebrew, it's in Aramaic. And maybe you can think about Halach Ma'anya as a telling the entire story in 3 little sentences, what happened in the past in Egypt, what we're doing now, and what we're hoping for the future. So we have Halach Ma'anya, we have the famous poem Dayenu, and we have the story, the legend about the Chachamim, the sages in Bnei Brak. This is what we have in the Geonic era. In the Middle Ages, and I'm talking now about the period from at the end of the Geonic era, 11th century, all the way to the first printed Haggadot. Now we have the influence, especially in Ashkenaz, in Germany, of the terrible massacres carried out by the Crusaders. And we have the legend about opening of the door to welcome Eliyahu. So that came up in Rabbi Lior's story, and also the song by David Broza. And we have Shvo Chamatcha, pour your wrath on the Gentiles who did not know your name. We're talking about a very vindictive kind of redemption here, very angry, very violent, if you will. And then we have the concluding piyutim, what we call today the Nirtza. So you have Chai B'Gadia, Echad Mi Yodea, and many of these piyutim have a messianic feel to them. Because if until now we spoke about the story of Egypt, and the Haggadah took us to, the center of the Haggadah was to talk about the past. Now in Ashkenaz, in time of this great suffering, they were asking for the future. So we have the concluding piyutim, and we have beautiful manuscripts. Some of them, I'll show you two examples really, really quick. And we have what I would like to call visual midrashim. That's the artistic depictions of the Haggadot. For the most part, much of the central part of the Haggadah was already ready at that time, but we have additions, as I said, at the end, the concluding piyutim and pour your wrath. And we also have commentaries, all kinds of commentaries to the Haggadah. So here you have, for example, the bird head Haggadah, very well known from Germany, the 13th century. You see the Jews have the special Judenhut, Jewish hat, and they have their faces as birds, probably not to paint human beings, what is forbidden to us by in the Ten Commandments. That's from Germany. And from the Sephardic world, I chose to show you the Sarajevo Haggadah, which actually was created in Barcelona in the middle of the 14th century. And it somehow found its way to Italy and then to Sarajevo, where it is now presented in the museum there. There's a book by, forgot her name, it's called The People of the Book, that's half legendary but half historic about the story of this Haggadah. Now I move to chapter number 7, that's the Middle Ages until early modernity. Now we're talking about the printing press. Yeah, all of a sudden it became easy and not so expensive to print Haggadot, to print many copies, and to have a Haggadah in each home, which was not the case until then. You know, the fact that we have today, each person around the table has his Haggadah, that's something that is completely new. So we have the early prints. Here I brought you the example from the Prague Haggadah, one of the most famous Haggadot, and modernity and post-modernity. Yes, until these days, actually. Yeah, I would say I created Haggadah, therefore I am. Every group, every association, every movement, every stream of Jews create their own Haggadah. Sometimes the text is influenced by their beliefs, theology, and ideology. And sometimes the text is, I would say, the traditional text, but the artistic depiction show their political, ideological dimension. And I just want to say that I can't wait to see the new CCR Haggadah. I heard it's beautiful, but I haven't seen it yet. I'm really, really looking forward to see that. And we have all kinds of additions, especially in the progressive segments of Judaism, relating to recent historical events. So especially events that had to do with the 20th century, the Shoah on one hand, and Lehavdil, the creation of the State of Israel. And we have a much more deliberate and explicit attention to questions of ideological issues. Here I just brought you two examples. The Kibbutz Haggadot, this is one of the hundreds of Kibbutzim Haggadot that created their own beautiful night of the Seder when God was not invited to the party, yes? But nevertheless, I think it's very Jewish and very profound. And we could, of course, talk a lot about that, but we don't have the time. And the second example that I wanted to share with you is the feminist Haggadot or gender-related Haggadot. This is arguably the first feminist Haggadah. It was published in Ms. magazine in 1977. And now, just again, the 9 chapters. And I think we will spend the rest of this hour talking about chapter number 9. I just want to say that I think that we always have to remember that crisis is a catalyst for change. Crisis can also kill us, but crisis is also a catalyst of change. And we have to think and we have to ponder and meditate on how we want this change to be affected. And I think this is our job to empower, to empower and educate. So in this Seder, probably people will not argue who brought the best fish and who brought the best wine. Yes, all these things, who sits next to whom, but we will have a chance to celebrate together, albeit in a different way. So when you're on Zoom, you can zoom out sometimes, we know how it works. But on the other hand, people can really be mesubim. People can really be together in ways that they couldn't previously because people are in different places in the world. So last year we had a Seder with my Argentinian parents-in-law. That was the first time we ever did that. So here my 15 minutes are over. And I want to thank you for inviting me. Pesach Sameach, but before that, Purim Sameach. Thank you very much.